The rain was falling hard on the streets of Chicago that Tuesday night. Inside Danny's diner, the warm yellow lights made everything feel cozy and safe. Katie Johnson wiped down the counter with a damp cloth, watching the water drops race down the big front window. She had been working at the diner for 8 months now, and she knew every corner of the small restaurant. At 17 years old, Katie was not like most teenagers. While her friends were at home watching movies or playing video games, she was here serving coffee and taking orders. Every evening after school and every weekend, Katie put on her white apron and served customers with a smile. She did not mind the work. Her family needed the money. Katie lived with her mother Linda and her 12-year-old brother Jake in a small apartment across town. Her father had died 3 years ago in a car accident, and since then, money had been very tight. Linda worked 2 jobs during the day, cleaning offices in the morning and working at a grocery store in the afternoon. Katie's job at the diner helped pay for food, rent, and other things the family needed. The diner was not fancy, but it was clean and friendly. Danny Rodriguez, the owner, treated his workers well. His nephew Tony was the night manager, and he looked out for Katie like a big brother. The restaurant served simple food: burgers, sandwiches, soup, and pie. Most customers were working people from the neighborhood who came for cheap, good meals. On this rainy Tuesday, the diner was quieter than usual. Only a few customers sat at the red plastic booths, drinking coffee and eating dinner. Katie was refilling the sugar containers when the front door opened with a little bell sound. A man walked in, shaking the rain from his expensive-looking coat. Katie looked up and saw an older gentleman, probably in his 70s. He was tall and thin, with gray hair and kind eyes behind wire glasses. His suit looked very expensive, much nicer than anything the regular customers wore. He carried a black leather briefcase that looked heavy and important. The man stood by the door for a moment, looking around the diner. He seemed tired and maybe a little sad. Katie grabbed a menu and walked over to him with her best customer service smile. "Good evening, sir. Table for one?" she asked politely. The man nodded and followed her to a corner booth by the window. Katie noticed he moved slowly, like his bones hurt. She set down the menu and filled his water glass from the pitcher she always carried. "Thank you, dear," the man said. His voice was gentle and deep. "You're very kind." Katie felt something different about this customer. Most people barely looked at her when they ordered food. They were in a hurry or talking on their phones. But this man looked right at her, like she was important. "What can I get you to drink tonight?" Katie asked. "Coffee, please, black." "And could you tell me what's good here? I don't eat at places like this very often." Katie smiled. "Well, our meatloaf is really popular. My mom says it tastes just like her grandmother used to make. We serve it with mashed potatoes and green beans, and our apple pie is homemade every morning." The man's eyes lit up a little. "That sounds perfect. I haven't had good meatloaf in years. And yes, I'll take a piece of that pie too." While Katie wrote down his order, the man asked, "What's your name, young lady?" "Katie Johnson, sir. I'm William Carter. It's nice to meet you, Katie." Katie went to get his coffee and give the order to the cook. When she came back with a steaming cup, William was looking out the window at the rain. He seemed lost in thought. "Here's your coffee, Mr. Carter," Katie said, setting it down carefully. "Thank you. Tell me, Katie, do you go to school?" "Yes, sir. I'm a senior at Roosevelt High School. I work here in the evenings and on weekends." William stirred his coffee slowly. "That must be hard work, going to school and working too. What do you want to do after you graduate?" Katie felt her cheeks get warm. Most adults did not ask her about her dreams. "I want to be a nurse, sir. I got accepted to Northwestern University, but..." She stopped talking. She did not want to tell this nice man that her family could not afford to send her to college. "But what?" William asked gently. Katie looked down at her notepad. "It's just expensive, you know. College costs a lot of money." William nodded like he understood. "Nursing is a wonderful profession. My wife was a nurse before we got married. She used to say that nurses were angels in comfortable shoes." Katie laughed. "That's a nice way to put it. Your wife sounds like she was a special person." She was, William said quietly. She died 5 years ago. Cancer. I'm sorry, Katie said. She meant it. Something about William made her want to take care of him, like he was a grandfather she had never had. The cook rang the bell, and Katie went to get William's food. The meatloaf looked perfect, with brown gravy and a big scoop of fluffy mashed potatoes. She brought it to his table with pride. "This looks wonderful," William said. He took a bite and closed his eyes. "Oh my, this is exactly like my mother used to make. How did you know?" Katie beamed. "I guess I'm good at matching food to people." While William ate, Katie checked on her other customers, but she kept coming back to his table to refill his coffee or see if he needed anything. They talked about school, about Chicago, and about life. William told her stories about traveling around the world for business. Katie told him about her brother Jake and how he wanted to be a baseball player. "You're a good sister," William said, "and a good daughter too, I bet. Working this hard to help your family shows real character." When William finished his pie, he sat back in the booth and patted his stomach. "That was the best meal I've had in months. Sometimes the simple things are the most satisfying." He pulled out his wallet and left 2 $20 bills on the table. The meal only cost $15. "Mr. Carter, this is too much," Katie said. William stood up and put on his coat. "You earned every penny, Katie. You made an old man feel welcome on a lonely night. That's worth more than money." He picked up his briefcase and headed for the door. "Take care of yourself, dear. And don't give up on that nursing dream. The world needs more people like you." Katie watched him walk out into the rain, holding his briefcase close to his chest. She had no idea that the kind old man was actually one of the richest people in America, or that his briefcase contained enough money to change her life forever. All she knew was that she had met someone special, someone who had treated her like she mattered. She cleared his table and put the $40 in her apron pocket, smiling as she thought about Mr. Carter's kind words. Little did she know that this was just the beginning of a story that would change everything. After William Carter left Danny's diner, Katie continued working with a smile on her face. The kind old man had made her evening brighter, and she kept thinking about his encouraging words about her nursing dreams. She served coffee to a truck driver, took an order from a young couple, and cleaned tables like she always did. The rain kept falling outside, making soft tapping sounds on the windows. The diner felt warm and cozy compared to the cold, wet night. Katie hummed quietly while she worked, feeling happier than she had in weeks. The $40 in her apron pocket would help buy groceries for her family, and maybe she could even get Jake the new baseball glove he had been wanting. Around 9:30, the last customers began to leave. The truck driver paid his bill and headed back to his big rig in the parking lot. The young couple finished their coffee and walked out holding hands under a shared umbrella. Soon, only Katie and Tony Rodriguez were left in the diner. Tony was Danny's nephew, a 25-year-old guy who had been managing the night shift for 3 years. He was like a big brother to Katie, always making sure she got home safely and never letting rude customers bother her. Tony had grown up in the neighborhood and knew how hard life could be for families like Katie's. "Good night tonight," Tony said, counting the money in the cash register. "That old guy you were talking to seemed really nice. He left you a big tip." Katie nodded, wiping down the last table. "He was special, really kind and interested in what I had to say. Most people don't really listen, you know." "Yeah, I noticed. He kept watching you work like he was impressed or something." Katie moved to the corner booth where William had been sitting. She picked up the salt and pepper shakers to clean them, then reached under the table to make sure no one had dropped anything. Her hand touched something smooth and hard. "Tony," she called out, her voice sounding strange. "There's something under here." She pulled out a black leather briefcase. It was the same one William had been carrying when he came into the diner. Katie's heart started beating faster. She could tell it was expensive and important looking. Tony walked over quickly. "Is that the old man's briefcase?" "It has to be. He was sitting right here and he had one just like this when he came in." Katie set it carefully on the table. The briefcase was heavier than she expected. He must have forgotten it when he left. Tony said, scratching his head. What should we do? Katie looked at the briefcase, feeling worried. He seemed like he might need this for something important. Remember how he kept it close to him while he ate? And he was talking about business, meetings. Tony shrugged. Well, we can keep it here overnight. Maybe he'll call tomorrow when he realizes it's missing. But Katie shook her head. That might be too late. What if he needs it early in the morning? What if it has important papers or something valuable inside? Katie, it's almost 10 o'clock. Where are we going to find this guy? We don't even know his last name or where he's staying. Katie bit her lip, thinking hard. Actually, he did tell me his name. William Carter. And he mentioned he was in town for business, so he's probably staying at a hotel. Tony looked doubtful. There are dozens of hotels in Chicago. We can't call them all. Katie stared at the briefcase. Something inside her said this was important, that William might be in trouble without it. She had seen the worry in his eyes when he talked about his business meetings. Tony, what if we look inside, just to find some identification or contact information? Then we could return it tonight. Tony hesitated. I don't know, Katie. Looking through someone's private stuff doesn't feel right. But leaving him without something he might desperately need doesn't feel right either, Katie argued. We're not going to steal anything or look at private papers, just enough to find out how to reach him. Tony looked at Katie's determined face and sighed. He had learned not to argue with her when she got that look. Okay, but just a quick look for contact information. Nothing else. Katie's hands shook a little as she opened the briefcase latches. They made small clicking sounds that seemed loud in the quiet diner. She lifted the lid slowly, not sure what to expect. Both Katie and Tony gasped at the same time. The briefcase was full of money. Not just a few bills, but thick stacks of $100 bills held together with rubber bands. Katie had never seen so much cash in her entire life. There had to be thousands and thousands of dollars. Oh my God, Tony whispered. Katie, close it right now. But Katie was looking at the other things in the briefcase. Besides the money, there were official-looking papers, contracts, and business cards. She picked up one of the business cards with shaking fingers. William Carter, Chief Executive Officer, Carter Industries, she read out loud. The address showed offices in New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles. Tony's eyes got wide. Carter Industries? Katie, that's a huge company. My cousin works construction and they build buildings for Carter Industries all the time. This guy isn't just rich, he's super rich. Katie found more papers with William's name on them. There were hotel receipts from the Grand Plaza Hotel downtown and what looked like contracts for buying land. One paper had a handwritten note that said, cash, payment for Morrison property, $100,000, meeting Wednesday 9 a.m. Tony, look at this, Katie said, showing him the note. He needs this money for a meeting tomorrow morning. If he doesn't have it, he might lose some big business deal. Tony was pacing around the diner now, running his hands through his hair. Katie, do you realize how much money is in there? This has to be at least $100,000, maybe more. Katie carefully counted the stacks. It's exactly 100,000, just like the note says. We have to call the police, Tony said. This is too much money for us to handle. But Katie shook her head firmly. The police will keep it as evidence. They'll have to do reports and investigations. Mr. Carter won't get it back in time for his meeting tomorrow. Katie, we're talking about $100,000. What if someone thinks we stole it? What if people don't believe we found it? Katie looked at Tony with determination in her eyes. Then we make sure we return it tonight, directly to Mr. Carter. That way there's no question about what happened. Tony stared at her like she was crazy. How are we supposed to do that? Katie held up the hotel receipt. The Grand Plaza Hotel. It's only 20 minutes from here. We can drive there and give it back to him tonight. Katie, it's late, and this is a crazy amount of money. What if it's dangerous? What if this is some kind of illegal money? Katie thought about the kind man who had talked to her about nursing and treated her with respect. Mr. Carter didn't seem like a criminal, Tony. He seemed like a good person who's probably worried sick about losing this briefcase. Tony looked at the money, then at Katie's face. He could see she had made up her mind, And when Katie decided something was right, nothing could change her mind. "Okay," he said finally. "But we're going together and we're being very careful. If anything seems wrong, we leave immediately." Katie smiled and carefully closed the briefcase. "Thank you, Tony. I know this is the right thing to do." As they locked up the diner and got into Tony's old car, neither of them could imagine how this decision would change Katie's life forever. All Katie knew was that a kind man needed help, and she was going to make sure he got it. Tony's old car made strange noises as they drove through the rainy streets of Chicago. Katie sat in the passenger seat, holding William's briefcase tightly on her lap. Her heart was beating fast, and her hands felt sweaty. She kept thinking about all that money inside the briefcase and wondering if they were doing the right thing. "Are you sure about this?" Tony asked, for the third time since they left the diner. "We could still go to the police station instead." Katie shook her head. "Mr. Carter needs this money for his meeting in the morning. If we give it to the police, he won't get it back in time. We're doing the right thing, Tony." The Grand Plaza Hotel was in the fancy part of downtown Chicago. Katie had walked past it many times but never been inside. It was a tall building with bright lights and a doorman in a uniform. Expensive cars were parked outside, and well-dressed people walked in and out of the shiny glass doors. Tony parked his beat-up car next to a brand-new Mercedes. "I feel like we don't belong here," he said, looking at the fancy hotel. "We belong here as much as anyone else," Katie said, but she felt nervous too. Her work clothes from the diner looked very plain compared to the nice outfits she saw through the hotel windows. They walked through the big glass doors into the hotel lobby. Katie had never seen anything so fancy. The floors were made of shiny marble and huge crystal lights hung from the ceiling. Soft music played in the background and everything smelled like expensive perfume and flowers. Behind the front desk stood a woman in her 50s with perfectly styled hair and a navy blue suit. Her name tag said, "Helen Brooks, Night Manager." She looked up when Katie and Tony approached, and her expression showed she was wondering what two young people in work clothes were doing in such an expensive hotel. "Can I help you?" Helen asked, in a polite but cool voice. Katie cleared her throat nervously. "Yes, ma'am, we're looking for one of your guests, Mr. William Carter. We have something that belongs to him." Helen's eyebrows went up. "I'm sorry, but we don't give out information about our guests. Hotel policy." Tony stepped forward. "Look, we're not trying to cause trouble. This man left something very important at the restaurant where she works." He pointed to Katie. "We just want to return it to him." Helen looked at them suspiciously. "What kind of something?" Katie held up the briefcase. "His briefcase. He forgot it at Danny's diner after dinner tonight. We think it might be important for his business meetings tomorrow." Helen studied Katie's face carefully. Something about the young girl's honest expression made her think twice. "How do I know this really belongs to Mr. Carter? How do I know? You didn't steal it?" Katie felt her cheeks get hot. "We didn't steal anything. Mr. Carter was very kind to me at the diner. He left a big tip and talked to me about college. When we found his briefcase after closing, we knew we had to return it." "What did Mr. Carter look like?" Helen asked, testing them. "He's about 70 years old, tall and thin, with gray hair and wire glasses," Katie answered quickly. "He wore an expensive dark suit and seemed very tired. He ordered meatloaf and apple pie, and he told me about his wife who used to be a nurse." Helen's expression began to change. The details were too specific and personal for someone who had stolen a briefcase. "And you said he left a big tip?" $40 on a $15 meal, Katie said. "He said I made him feel welcome on a lonely night." Helen looked at Tony. "And you work at the diner too?" "I'm the night manager," Tony replied. "I saw them talking, and I saw how nice he was to Katie. When we found the briefcase, she insisted we bring it here tonight instead of waiting until tomorrow." Helen was quiet for a moment, thinking. She had worked at fancy hotels for 20 years and had seen all kinds of people. Most who came looking for guests had bad intentions or wanted something. But these two young people seemed genuinely concerned about returning something that didn't belong to them. "Mr. Carter is one of our most important guests," Helen said finally. "He stays here whenever he's in Chicago on business. If this really is his briefcase, he's probably very worried about it. Can you call his room and ask if he's missing it? Katie asked hopefully. Helen hesitated. It's after 10:30 at night. He might be sleeping. Please, Katie said. He seemed really worried about his business meetings tomorrow. What if he needs whatever is in this briefcase? Helen looked at Katie's earnest face and made her decision. Wait here. Don't move and don't leave the lobby. She picked up the phone and dialed William's room number. Katie and Tony stood in the fancy lobby, feeling out of place but determined. Katie noticed other people in the lobby staring at them, probably wondering what two kids in diner uniforms were doing in such an expensive hotel. The phone rang several times before William answered. His voice sounded tired and worried. Mr. Carter, this is Helen Brooks at the front desk. I'm sorry to disturb you so late, but there are two young people here who say they have something that belongs to you. On the other end of the phone, William's heart jumped. Is it my briefcase? Please tell me someone found my briefcase. Helen looked at Katie with surprise. Yes, sir. A young lady says you left it at Danny's diner tonight. William's voice got excited. Danny's diner, yes, the sweet girl who served me dinner. Katie, is it Katie? Helen looked at Katie with new respect. What's your name, dear? Katie Johnson, Katie replied. Helen spoke into the phone. Yes, Mr. Carter. Katie Johnson is here with your briefcase. Thank God, William said, and Helen could hear the relief in his voice. I'll be right down. Please ask them to wait. This is incredibly important. Helen hung up the phone and looked at Katie and Tony with amazement. He's coming down right away. He seems very relieved that you found it. Katie smiled. I'm so glad. He seemed like such a nice man, and I was worried he might be in trouble without it. You know, Helen said, in 20 years of working at hotels, I've never seen anyone go to this much trouble to return something they found. Most people would have just kept it or turned it in to the police in the morning. Tony nodded. That's what I said, but Katie insisted we bring it here tonight. She said it was the right thing to do. A few minutes later, the elevator doors opened, and William Carter stepped out. He was wearing a bathrobe over his pajamas and slippers on his feet. His gray hair was messy and his eyes looked tired, but his face lit up when he saw Katie holding his briefcase. Katie, he said, walking quickly across the lobby. I can't believe you're here. I can't believe you found it. Katie stood up and held out the briefcase. You forgot it at the diner, Mr. Carter. I thought you might need it for your important meetings tomorrow. William took the briefcase with shaking hands. I didn't realize it was missing until an hour ago. I've been going crazy with worry. This briefcase contains everything I need for the most important business deal of my life. He opened the briefcase right there in the lobby, checking to make sure everything was still inside. The money, the contracts, the papers, everything was exactly as he had left it. William looked up at Katie with tears in his eyes. You have no idea what you've done for me tonight. This deal tomorrow will help hundreds of people keep their jobs. Without this briefcase... He shook his head, unable to finish the sentence. Katie felt embarrassed by all the attention. It wasn't a big deal, Mr. Carter. It was the right thing to do. William stared at her in amazement. Not a big deal. Katie, there are very few people in this world who would have done what you did tonight. William Carter could not stop looking at Katie with amazement. He held his briefcase tightly and shook his head like he could not believe what had just happened. The fancy hotel lobby felt quiet around them, with only the soft music playing in the background. Katie, William said, his voice full of emotion. Please sit down with me for a few minutes. I need to understand something. Katie looked at Tony, who nodded that it was okay. They sat down on the expensive leather chairs in the hotel lobby. Helen Brooks, the night manager, watched from behind her desk, still surprised by everything that had happened. William leaned forward in his chair. Katie, do you know what was in this briefcase? Katie felt her cheeks get red. We had to look inside to find your contact information, Mr. Carter. We saw the money and your business papers. We knew it was important. There was $100,000 in cash in this briefcase, William said quietly. Most people have never seen that much money in their entire lives, and you brought it back to me without taking even $1. Tony spoke up. Katie insisted we return it tonight. I wanted to wait until morning or call the police, but she said you might need it for your meeting. William's eyes filled with tears. That meeting is at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'm buying land to build a new factory that will give jobs to 300 people. Without that cash, the deal would have fallen through. Those people would have lost their chance at good jobs. Katie's eyes got wide. 300 jobs? Really? Really, William said. The seller only wanted cash, no checks or bank transfers. He's old-fashioned that way. If I hadn't had that money tomorrow morning, months of planning would have been wasted. William wiped his eyes with a tissue from his pocket. Katie, in my 72 years of life, I have met thousands of people. Business partners, employees, politicians, celebrities. But I have never met anyone with the kind of honesty you showed tonight. Katie felt uncomfortable with all the praise. I just did what anyone would do, Mr. Carter. William shook his head firmly. No, Katie. Most people would not have done what you did. Most people would have kept the money, or at least taken some of it. They would have told themselves they deserved it for being honest. But you didn't touch a penny. He paused and looked at Katie carefully. Tell me about your family, Katie. Tell me about your life. Katie was not sure why he wanted to know, but something about William made her feel comfortable talking to him. I live with my mom, Linda, and my little brother, Jake. Jake is 12 and loves baseball more than anything in the world. My mom works 2 jobs to pay our bills. What happened to your father? William asked gently. Katie's voice got quiet. He died 3 years ago in a car accident. Since then, Mom has worked really hard to take care of us. She cleans offices early in the morning, then works at Miller's grocery store in the afternoon. I work at the diner to help with money for food and rent. William listened carefully to every word. And you're a senior in high school? Yes, sir. I graduate in 3 months. Katie's voice got excited. I got accepted to Northwestern University to study nursing. I want to help sick people get better, especially kids. But, William said, sensing there was more to the story. Katie looked down at her hands. But college costs too much money. Even with financial aid, we can't afford it. Mom feels bad about it, but there's just no way. William was quiet for a long moment. Katie could see him thinking hard about something. Finally, he spoke. Katie, I need to tell you something about myself. My full name is William Carter, and I own Carter Industries. We build factories, office buildings, and shopping centers all across the country. Tony's mouth dropped open. You're that William? Carter, the billionaire guy who's always in the business news? William smiled a little. I suppose I am. But I wasn't always rich, Katie. I grew up poor, just like you. My father worked in a steel mill, and my mother cleaned houses to make extra money. When I was 17, I worked in a grocery store after school to help my family pay bills. Katie listened with surprise. She had not imagined that the kind old man from the diner was one of the richest people in America. I built my business from nothing. William continued. It took 50 years of hard work, but I was lucky too. I had people who believed in me and helped me when I needed it most. He looked directly at Katie. Tonight you reminded me of something I had almost forgotten. What's that? Katie asked. That there are still good people in the world. People who do the right thing even when no one is watching. People who care more about helping others than helping themselves. William stood up and walked to the big window that looked out at the city lights. Katie, I lost my wife Margaret 5 years ago. We never had children. Since then, I've been wondering what to do with all the money I've made. Tonight, you helped me figure it out. He turned back to face Katie and Tony. I want to help you, Katie. I want to make sure you can go to college and become the nurse you dream of being. Katie's heart started beating faster. Mr. Carter, you don't need to do anything for me. I just returned your briefcase. That's what anyone should do. William smiled. But that's exactly why I want to help you. Because you don't expect anything. Because you're honest and kind and hardworking. He sat back down next to Katie. I have a business proposition for you. A business proposition? Katie asked, confused. Tomorrow morning after my land deal meeting, I want to visit your high school. I want to meet with your principal and your guidance counselor. I want to learn more about your grades and your college plans. Katie looked at Tony, then back at William. Why would you want to do that? Because I think you might be exactly the kind of person who deserves a chance to make her dreams come true, William said, and because I'm a businessman who recognizes good character when I see it. William reached into his wallet and pulled out a business card. This has my personal phone number on it. I want you to call me tomorrow after school. Can you do that? Katie took the card with shaking hands. Yes, sir. But Mr. Carter, I don't understand why you want to help me. William stood up and picked up his briefcase. Katie, tonight you saved my business deal and helped 300 families who will get jobs because of it. You did that without knowing who I was or what was at stake. You did it because it was right. He started walking toward the elevator, then turned back. There's something else I want you to think about tonight. You work hard, you help your family, you dream of helping other people as a nurse. You're exactly the kind of person this world needs more of. The elevator doors opened, and William stepped inside. Call me tomorrow, Katie. I have a feeling we're going to change your life. As the elevator doors closed, Katie sat in the fancy hotel lobby, staring at the business card in her hand. She could not believe what had just happened. Tony was grinning at her like she had just won the lottery. Katie, Tony said, I think you just met your guardian angel. Katie looked at the business card again, then put it carefully in her pocket. Tomorrow she would call William Carter and find out what he meant by changing her life. Tonight she just wanted to go home and tell her mother about the amazing thing that had happened. Katie could barely sleep that night. She kept thinking about William Carter and his promise to change her life. When she got home from the hotel, she had told her mother, Linda, everything that happened. Linda listened with wide eyes, not believing that her daughter had met one of the richest men in America. Are you sure this really happened? Linda asked for the third time while they sat at their small kitchen table. A billionaire wants to help you go to college? Katie showed her mother William's business card again. He said to call him after school today. Mom, what if he really means it? What if he can help me become a nurse? Linda looked worried. Katie, honey, rich people sometimes make promises they don't keep. I don't want you to get your hopes up too. Hi. But Katie felt something special about William Carter. The way he had looked at her, the way he talked about his own poor childhood, made her believe he was serious. She went to school the next day, barely able to concentrate on her classes. Edit 3 o'clock. Katie called the number on William's business card. A woman answered in a professional voice. Mr. Carter's office, this is Patricia Wells speaking. Hello? Katie said nervously. My name is Katie Johnson. Mr. Carter asked me to call him today. Oh, yes, Katie. Patricia's voice became warm and friendly. Mr. Carter has been waiting for your call. He told me all about what you did last night. Hold on, I'll get him right away. A moment later, William's familiar voice came on the phone. Katie, how are you, dear? I'm fine, Mr. Carter. How did your business meeting go this morning? William laughed. It went perfectly thanks to you. The factory deal is complete, and 300 people will have new jobs by Christmas. I could never have done it without that briefcase you returned. Katie felt proud and happy. I'm so glad, Mr. Carter. Now, Katie, I have some wonderful news. I spent the morning at Roosevelt High School, meeting with your principal, Mrs. Nancy Davis, and your guidance counselor, Mr. Steve Mitchell. Katie's heart started beating fast. You did? They told me remarkable things about you, Katie. You have a 3.8 grade point average while working 25 hours a week. Your teachers say you're one of the kindest, most hardworking students they've ever had. They also confirmed that you were accepted to Northwestern University's nursing program. Katie felt nervous. Yes, sir. But like I told you, we can't afford the tuition. Well, William said, and Katie could hear him smiling through the phone. That's about to change. Katie, I want you and your family to come to your apartment tonight at 7 o'clock. I have something very important to discuss with all of you. After school, Katie raced home to tell her mother and Jake about the phone call. Jake, who was practicing baseball in their small backyard, got excited when he heard a billionaire was coming to visit. "Do you think he has a fancy car?" Jake asked, tossing his baseball up and catching it. "Jake, don't ask him about his car," Linda warned. "We need to be polite and respectful." At exactly 7 o'clock, there was a knock on the door of their small apartment. Katie opened it to find William Carter standing there with a woman in a business suit. William looked much more rested than he had the night before, and he was smiling broadly. "Katie, this is my lawyer, Patricia Wells. May we come in?" Katie's family lived in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment with old furniture and faded carpets. Katie felt embarrassed about how small and plain it looked compared to the fancy hotel where she had met William. But William walked into their home like he was entering a palace. "What a lovely, warm home you have," he said to Linda. "You can feel the love in this place." Linda blushed. "Thank you, Mr. Carter. Please sit down. Can I get you some coffee or tea?" "Coffee would be wonderful, thank you." While Linda made coffee, William talked to Jake about baseball. "I hear you're quite a player, young man." Jake's eyes lit up. "I play shortstop for my school team. I want to play in the major leagues someday." "That's a fine dream," William said. "Dreams are important. They give us something to work toward." When everyone was sitting around their small table, William opened his briefcase, a different one from the night before. He pulled out several official-looking papers. "I asked you all here tonight because I want to do something that will change your lives forever," William began. "Katie, your honesty last night reminded me of why I started my business 50 years ago. I wanted to help people and make the world a better place." He handed Katie a folder. "Open it." With shaking hands, Katie opened the folder. Inside was a letter from Northwestern University and several other papers she didn't understand. "Read the letter out loud," William said gently. Katie's voice trembled as she read. "Dear Miss Johnson, we are pleased to inform you that you have been awarded the William Carter Full Scholarship. This scholarship covers all tuition, room and board, books, and living expenses for 4 years at Northwestern University." Katie stopped reading and stared at William with her mouth open. Linda gasped and covered her face with her hands. Jake jumped up from his chair. "You're paying for Katie's college?" Jake shouted. William nodded. "Every penny. Katie will graduate from nursing school without owing a single dollar." Linda started crying. "Mr. Carter, this is too much. We can't accept something so expensive." William held up his hand. "Please. Let me finish. There's more." He turned to Linda. "Mrs. Johnson, I also have a job offer for you. Carter Industries needs a new facility manager at our Chicago office. The job pays $60,000 a year with full health insurance and benefits." Linda's eyes got wide. $60,000 was more than she made from both her current jobs combined. "And Jake," William said, turning to the 12-year-old boy, "I'm setting up a college fund for you too. When you graduate high school, you'll have enough money for any college you want to attend." The family sat in stunned silence. Katie felt like she was dreaming. "But why?" Linda finally asked. "Why are you doing all this for us?" William's eyes got misty. "Because your daughter saved more than my briefcase last night. She saved my faith in humanity. In a world where many people only care about money and success, Katie chose to do the right thing without expecting any reward." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out one more paper. "There's one last thing. I'm buying you a house." Katie felt dizzy. "A house?" "A 3-bedroom house in Evanston, just 10 minutes from Northwestern University. It's yours, free and clear. No rent, no mortgage payments." Jake started jumping around the small apartment. Linda was crying so hard she couldn't speak. Katie just stared at William, unable to believe any of this was real. "Mr. Carter," Katie whispered, "I just returned your briefcase. That's all I did." William smiled and took Katie's hands in his. "Katie, you did something that most people in this world would never do. You were honest when no one was watching. You helped someone when you had nothing to gain. That kind of character is rarer than any amount of money." 6 months later, Katie started her first day at Northwestern University. She lived in the beautiful house William had bought for her family, and her mother worked happily at Carter Industries. Jake played baseball on the best youth team in their new neighborhood. Katie graduated 4 years later with honors and became a pediatric nurse at Chicago Children's Hospital. She and William stayed close friends for the rest of his life. He often said that meeting Katie that rainy night at Danny's diner was the best business deal he ever made. And Katie learned that sometimes doing the right thing when no one is watching can change not just your own life, but the lives of everyone you love.